All right, so before you were Scotty Too Hotty, you worked as Scott Taylor on WWF TV, did enhancement work. How did you get hooked up with that?
That started through Phil Apollo. Um, he was a Northeast guy. I grew up kind of watching him. Not grew up, but I mean, I guess like because he was working for Savoldi's and ICW. Like I think was probably the first time that I saw him as Fabulous Phil Apollo with, him and Eric Spracia. Who's a guy. I think Eric's up in your area somewhere, or maybe he's a Boston guy, I guess. So he must have been a Kowalski guy with Phil. And I remember seeing them on Savoldi's TVs, and then I remember seeing Phil when he went to. We started getting the ESPN, the Dallas stuff, world class. And he was Playboy Vince Apollo down there. And then I met him on a show, man, and just an independent show. Joe Eugenio down in New Bedford, Massachusetts. He just came down one night just to check out the show. I don't think he had done anything with wrestling for a long time, and he just came and hung out in the dressing room, and we hit it off, and went out to dinner, went to a Chinese restaurant afterwards, and then had no contact with him. We'd exchanged numbers or whatever. And I was about 17 years old at the time. It was the summer of 91, and working at a KFC in high school. And I get a phone call, at work at KFC, cooking chicken in the back of KFC. And they say, hey, if you get a phone call, and I go, and it's, hey, this is Phil Apollo. And, I've been doing extra work for WWF, and they want me to bring an extra guy this time. Would you be interested? Dude, like, of course, like, all right, man, high school, about to turn 18 years old, and, get to go work for the WWF, of course, so that's how it happened. It was, so I started wrestling in 89, and then got that chance with Phil in 91, to go start working as an extra. And, like kind of like you guys, like working pretty consistently for them as an extra at the time, because they did a lot of TV in the Northeast, so it was a I looked at it all as an audition every time I went out there. Yeah, you're getting your ass kicked for 2 or 3 minutes, but I mean, you're getting your ass kicked by the best in the world, at 17, 18 years old, so, it was all an audition. Everything we do is an audition all the time. You never know, like, and then that's what it was. And eventually, it took a long time, 6 years, 7 years, but I finally got that contract when they started that light heavyweight division.
Who are your favorite guys to work with as an extra, and who are your least favorite guys to work with?
Owen Hart, always, I worked Owen, I don't know how many times, and I was a fan of his, when he was the Blue Blazer, and I kind of followed a little bit of stuff, and Stampede, and I was always a Brett fan, but then I saw he had a brother who did all this high flying stuff, and I really like Owen probably better, as a performer. But I don't know, least favorite, I don't know, man. Like I always, nobody ever hurt me or treated me badly. It's funny, and that's throughout my whole career. When I go, I didn't like this guy, there's really nobody that stands out that I had to work with on a day-to-day basis. I've met people out there probably on independence. There's always that guy, dude, and this guy who he's been working on the independents for 20, 30 years, and he's got that bitter that bitterness about him, where it's kind of, oh yeah, I make my living doing this, and WWF sucks, and this is the reason I'm not there, and John Cena sucks, and this guy sucks, and it's the same guy, and it's just that negativity, I guess, of
I appreciate you not calling me out by name while you said all that.
We've been doing it for 30 years. You're just not bitter yet.
So how did you get your deal?
Finally, it was when WCW had started using some of the WWE Northeast guys as extras. Like I think Brian Walsh may have gone down there, Maverick Wild had gone down there, and this was all through Tony Rumble at the time, through Kevin Sullivan. They were, Kevin and Tony were friends, so Tony started booking some extras, and I had been doing extra work for WWF for years, and so Rumble had called me about going to do some stuff on Nitro, and then Taz called me to do a tryout for ECW, 2 nights in Massachusetts, working him. One was TV, maybe they were both TV, but either way, like I can't remember, but I know the first night we went out there, and I came back, and Dreamer and Taz pulled me into a room and said, we want to do something with you. And they had a couple different ideas. And I had actually talked to Bruce Pritchard the night before. Raw was shooting in Lowell, Massachusetts the night before. So I'd gone a day early and stopped at Raw and just spoke to Bruce real quick, who was the head of talent relations at the time, and just said, hey, look, I'm just wanted to kind of give you guys the courtesy of, letting you know that I'm on my way to work for ECW right now, hoping that may trigger something and maybe push them a little bit to do something. And Bruce said, I don't have time to talk to you right now, but can you call me next Wednesday? And I called him that next Wednesday. And this is, of course, so Taz and Dreamer said, we want to bring you in. I said, oh, bro, Bruce Pritchard wants to talk to me, and have, what's Bruce Pritchard want to talk to me about? Like, so I had an idea, like maybe they wanted to do something. And I think I probably had known there was already talk about a light heavyweight division, and that may have been why I tried to push them. I thought maybe there'd be something. And so I called him on Wednesday, following Wednesday, and that's what it was. He said, we want to put you under contract, and we're starting this light heavyweight division. And that was really the extra work was my foot in the door, but that was kind of the next step. I think WWE has a track record of never really doing anything with smaller guys or light heavyweight division or cruiserweight division or whatever name you want to put on it. It's 205 Live. It always seems to take a back seat there. And it always been the land of the giants up until that point too, so it never really did anything, and then a couple of years later, the whole Too Much thing came about with me and Brian, and then Too Cool thing. But so everything was just kind of a stepping stone,
How long were you there before they teamed you up with Brian?
So I signed in February of 97, and I didn't really do anything, had a couple matches on TV here and there. But then really started to become almost like a full-time contract enhancement guy was what I was feeling, and that's kind of what the light heavyweight division was. They have us working each other as light heavyweights, but then we'd go out and, I can remember working with Mark Marrow, and I just felt like I was an extra. There was no entrance. You just basically a body in there, and you were there for him, and so that was February of 97. And then Too Cool, the first pre-tape we did is Too Cool. Too Much. So Too Much would have been WrestleMania of 98 was when Brian and I got put together in the Battle Royal at WrestleMania in 98 in Boston. So I guess it was a year before Brian and I got put together, and then they really still didn't do a whole lot with us as Too Much. We had a couple pay-per-view matches. And then maybe, I guess it was May of 99 is when they presented the Too Cool stuff to us. But that didn't really take off until about December of 99, January of 2000.
How did you like teaming with Brian?
It was stressful at times. We were just two different people, and I think anybody who knows Brian knows I'm not saying anything that he didn't know or anything I wouldn't say to his face, and we were just two different people and with two different lifestyles and two different our priorities were a lot different, and he was good. He was really, really good, especially as a heel. I thought I was always a fan of him. It was just he just made some bad life choices, and but even before the party stuff started to come in, it was I can remember King of the Ring in Boston in 2000. Here we are, tag team champions, call times like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and at 5 o'clock he's still not there, and they're like, where's Brian? Where it's like, it's being in a tag team at that level is almost like being married, even more so. And some, because you're financially tied to this person, and choices they make reflect on you. So it was stressful, but dude, I tell you, there were nights where we wouldn't even speak before we went through the curtain. And then as soon as we go through the curtain, it was like magic, and it just flipped a switch. And for whatever reason, it worked. You can't even really describe it or figure out why it worked the way it did, because we were so different.
How did they pitch I was gonna say Too Much. Wait, back up a little bit. Do you remember who Too Much's first TV win was against?
Was it you and Devin?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
Yep.
and I know I remember we worked with you guys, but I didn't realize it was the first one.
Yeah, you guys weren't even wearing matching tights yet. It
Really?
was like,
Yeah,
yeah, it was like your second week teaming up. Yep.
yeah, that's
Yep.
cool. There's
How
so
did they
many
fit?
things, dude, that is just kind of a blur and don't this is why I always say take pictures and keep a journal because like that's something like should be a huge thing to me like because especially since it was you guys because we had known each other from probably like I don't know early 90s sometime, right? And then there's stuff I'll even see, Mike, where it's like us and The Rock and Big Show and Triple H and some segment we did on Raw, SmackDown, and I'll see it on YouTube or somebody will tag me on social media, and it'd be like it wasn't even me. I'm seeing this footage for the first time, and here I am involved in this super cool segment that should be a highlight, but it's just I don't know. I guess sometimes when you're going through it, you take it for granted uh a bit, and it's also just like everything's moving so fast, especially like once you get to um WWE and the way we're doing like 3 or 4 days of house shows and then 2 days of TV and then you go home for a day, and so you didn't really have time. You might do the segment, but you don't have really time to watch it back or see it or really absorb it before you're out on the road and doing it all again. So I think that's part of the reason it's all kind of a blur.
How did they pitch Too Cool to you guys? How much of it was your input? How much was the creative gift to you guys?
What I remember is Russo coming up to us at the Nassau Coliseum and saying, we want to do this thing with you guys where you guys start kind of dressing similar to what the Hardy Boys are doing, where they went from tights to street clothes and want you guys to kind of go out and dress like the kids are dressing in the malls. That's what I remember him telling us, with no real direction other than it was kind of like, I think he said, um, you guys are going to think you're cool. You dress like you think you're cool. You think you're cool. And we're going to call you too cool, but you're not cool. Something to that effect. You know what I mean? So it was kind of like almost like a mockery type thing where, we're going over the top. We think we are cool. We're not. We started as heels, and I think it was so entertaining that and so over the top and outlandish, similar to like kind of the way The Rock got over. He was just so far out there and just so fun to watch. It was, once he became that Rock character, it was hard not to like him. And I think it was kind of similar to us to a degree, where it was just we were so over the top and crazy and outlandish that it was, and just so different at the time. Because you had the Hardys doing the crazy, crazy stuff, and Edge and Christian doing the latter stuff with those guys, and a little bit more comedy with Edge and Christian, and then Bradshaw and Farouk just beating people up, and the Dudleys coming out with their tables, and like everybody kind of had their own thing. There really wasn't a more of a lighter comedy type team at the time, and I did lately. I've been struggling with the word, the term comedy wrestler, and I don't know why, but it bothers me. And I've talked to some other people like Cabana and Session Moth Martina over in Ireland who's kind of pigeonholed into that comedy wrestler thing. So to me, like somebody tweeted me the other day about Gene Money, who does do a lot of comedy in his matches, but he's also more than that, and I feel like I'm more than that. And so you go, okay, so this guy's a comedy wrestler, but this other guy over here who puts baby oil, spandex, and choreographed fights with another grown man, he's a serious wrestler, so I just feel like it's a bit of a comedy wrestlers are not as good as the other, like, I don't
The
know.
real wrestlers.
And I don't mean to go off on a tangent on it. I haven't talked to anybody about this. I just kind of think about this stuff. And another thing is, and I don't know if you've heard this term over the years, where people will say funny doesn't equal money, meaning you got to get serious, right? Like, then you go, okay, but when you look at all the highlights that they show of Rock and Austin and these guys, a lot of it was comedy stuff. So yeah, you do have to flip that switch and know when to get serious, but I don't know if I agree with that term, what comedy doesn't equal money, because I think that made a lot of comedy stuff made both Rock and Austin, and it wasn't comedy, but it was like, I think Austin, spraying the beer truck, whole beer truck stuff is a bit of a comedy, and and him singing with the guitar with Kurt with a little cowboy hat on and all that stuff, like that's comedy. And there's Kurt again, you're going to call Kurt Angle a gold medalist, a comedy wrestler. He did a ton of comedy stuff, so I guess, I don't know. I just feel like I get looped into that comedy wrestler thing when I don't feel like I do a ton of, honestly, I don't do with certain people. I would do more comedy, like a Colt Cabana or something, but most of the time it's just trying to make it fun. Like, is the Worm comedy? I don't know. It's just kind of a fun moment. I'm not trying to get a laugh out of it. I'm trying to like make people forget about their cable bill that's 2 months late, or the COVID, or the negativity of social media. Like, that's my job. I don't think it's comedy.
Speaking of the Worm, tell me about the Worm. I mean, that's you're known for the Worm. Tell me about it. Like, how did you come up with it?
Yeah, it was just something that just kind of came about from doing it on live events, and just to kind of pop the guys and make the other guys kind of laugh. It wasn't anything I intended to really do on television. Actually, Road Dogg had been doing it a little bit on a couple times on television, where he would just worm into a pin, to worm across the ring to pin his opponent. But I had also been doing it a little bit, and then I asked him, would you mind if I start doing that on TV? And so I started to do it on TV when we got the whole Too Cool thing. It kind of seemed to fit with those characters, and then one night on Raw, Jerry Lawler, as I'm hopping around the ring, spelled out Worm. And, he said, as I'm hopping, he says WORM. And at the time I wasn't really, I don't even know why I was hopping or why I was doing what I was doing. But, I was hopping to the other side. And then when he did that, I asked him to keep doing it. And, I just started hopping 4 times. So with the way things were at the time, with all the catchphrases and the sing-alongs with the crowd and stuff, I felt like if he did it a few times, it would catch on and the audience would do it along. And sure enough, it worked. So you just never know, man. That's why I say in my seminars to these kids now, like, just, you don't know what's going to work. What isn't going to work is staying in your safe zone and just trying to be a great wrestler. And, more than ever, you have to be a good wrestler these days. But you also need something to make yourself marketable and sell yourself and give that audience a reason to want to pay to see you. And we're all wrestlers, and there's always going to be a bigger move or a better move or something with more flips on it. There's always going to be somebody that comes along, but certain characters will Hogan will stick around and be known forever, and Austin will be around forever at Rock. Those guys didn't do anything crazy, but there was just something lovable about all of them and their ability to connect with an audience.
What was that like sudden, okay, I'm an indie guy, I just want to be a wrestler mentality too? Oh my gosh, I am a WWE superstar. I'm at WrestleMania. This is the Attitude Era. I'm a rock star. Like, what was that like for someone like you, who's very level-headed and down to earth? What was it like for someone like you?
Yeah, it was always, it was awesome. Like, I guess just maybe surreal is a good word to use. Like, just surreal, and just like, how did this happen at just such a right time? Like, my career, I always say, peaked at the peak of professional wrestling. Like, I don't know if we'll ever see it as hot as what the Attitude Era was ever again, and there was just so, like you said, like, so many eyes on it, and felt like the entire world was watching. I always say, like, I can remember going to theme parks at that time and, going to Disney or something, and you'll see 10 different wrestling shirts, between WWE and WCW at the time, the Austin shirt and DX shirts and our stuff and Rock, and then you had NWO over on the other side, and it was just like everybody was watching wrestling at the time, and it was the cool thing, especially like, for a college age kids, like, that was it was just a cool time. It was a cool time to be a part of it. But I think I've always been good at separating me, the real person, from the character, and not buying into that too much, and not buying into the way that people treat you better when you're on TV and when they think you're making lots of money, and you are, and you try to separate, okay, who really likes me for the guy I was a year ago, and who likes me now because I'm on a huge TV show, so I've always been good about keeping that and, appreciating it, but also keeping that at arm's length, and if you buy into that, which I think we've seen some people do in the past where I think, and I've said this before, I think Brian bought into it where he thought a lot of people were his friends and took him down a bad road at times. And he liked, sometimes I think maybe he liked Grandmaster Sexay better than he liked Brian Lawler, I may be wrong on that. It's just my opinion, but I've seen people where they seem to like the character that they play a little bit better than themselves, and they kind of become all of that. And then it all goes away. It all goes away. As much fun as I'm having right now, and as busy as I am, and the money's solid, and all that stuff, it'll never be as big as what it was, and then so that all goes away, and all those people go away, and you just got to be careful of that. It's a dangerous pitfall that a lot of people fall into.
Why did they break you and Brian up?
He got fired. Yeah.
While you guys were teaming.
Yeah. So what happened was in February of 2001, I went out with a neck injury, and I was out for a couple months, and then they sent me to Louisville to go to OVW to kind of knock the ring rust off. I didn't have surgery, just kind of did a couple months of rehab and got it back, rested and got my neck better. And I remember they flew me. So Brian was still working at the time, and I can remember he had a match on Sunday Night Heat the week before. I think it was like him and Blackman with Trish involved or something. But anyways, he'd been teaming with Blackman a little bit, and I can remember when they sent me to OVW, they flew me, instead of flying me to Louisville, they flew me to Cincinnati. Then I had to drive from Cincinnati to Louisville. And as I'm driving, I get a phone call from a buddy, and he said, "Hey, Brian got fired, huh?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" Like, he said, "It's all over, it's all over the place." And because I was driving, I had, and this is like before you had all the internet on your phone, right? So it's 2001, like cell phones had come out, but we still didn't have the iPhone and all that stuff yet, right? So I didn't know about it. And so, he'd been busted going into Canada the night before, with all the drugs and stuff, and got fired. And that was it, man. Like, I don't know if we really spoke after that until I got released. Maybe maybe I saw him. I can't remember, man. I can't remember. I was going to go down and talk about that, but I don't know if I saw him again until after I got fired. I got released.
When you came back, were you teaming up with Albert then?
No. What did I do when I came back? I think I was just doing singles stuff, because they brought me back at actually had a pretty good return from that injury, and that was they brought me back at Madison Square Garden with, it may have been the main event on SmackDown, where it was Regal and Tajiri and Jericho against Jericho with a mystery partner, and that Jericho brought me back, so it was a pretty cool return. It's just I kind of just floundered around in singles for a while. And then I think I feel like Albert wasn't until later, because I ended up in 2002. I ended up having the neck surgery, same injury. I just finally had to have the surgery. And when I came back from the neck surgery in 2003, that's when I came back with just Rikishi. It was just he and I for a while. And then that's when we, won the WWE tag team titles and stuff. So that was like maybe October-ish of 2003, maybe. Well, I guess, I don't know. We came back in October, I guess. And then I know we were tag team champions at WrestleMania 20 at Madison Square Garden. Right. So that that was probably a 6-month run together. And then I think he got released, and
you're the kiss of death.
Yeah, that's it, man. That's all me.
How did they add Rikishi into the mix with Too Cool?
So they added Rikishi in In Brian and I came back, I think it was late October as heels. We went into a thing with Edge, Christian, the Hardy Boys, and the Hollies, and then we worked Survivor Series, 99. So the end of 99, we're still heels, complete heels. At Survivor Series was us and the Hollies against Edge, Christian, and the Hardys. And December, I remember Michael Hayes coming up to us and saying, "Hey, Junior's going to come out, Rikishi's going to come out and save you guys." I think it was like the Mean Street Posse and maybe British Bulldog, and I feel like Val Venus was involved in it. Rikishi's going to come out, make the save, and want you guys to do some kind of dance afterwards. And I was like, oh, I'm not a dancer at all. Like, I'm a break dancer, and that's about it. I have nothing else. Most no rhythm whatsoever. And so we put together that, Brian kind of came up with that like electric slide, too cool dance type thing. And we remember us rehearsing that and us doing that. And now that's dude, like, talked about this a couple times recently. And I hadn't realized it till recently. It was December of 99 was when they put us together. But then a month later, at the Royal Rumble in the Garden is when we did the dance together. And like, that's a huge, like, we were complete, like, I don't like to use the word over, but that's when I felt like, holy shit, like we were over. When you got Madison Square Garden, everybody's standing on their feet in the middle of the Rumble, and we just break out the dance. And it was a career highlight. We didn't know it at the time, but to think that we were only together for a month at that point is just crazy how fast it all happened.
Tell me about the invasion. There's a lot of new talent coming in, no more competition. What was the locker room like? What were the boys like? What was the buzz like in the locker room when you first heard WCW closed, and then when the WCW guys came into your locker room?
Yeah, it was weird. It was a weird time because there was a lot of uncertainty of what's going to happen. Not only do we not have any place to go anymore if we leave WWE, the competition just got bought up, and it was a good time when both companies were hot. There was, at least, hey, even if I do get let go from here at any point, at least there's another company out there that could pay solid money, so you had that piece in the back of your mind, and then it was that whole thing happened with Shane showing up on Raw. When Shane showed up, Shane showed up on Nitro that night. That's when I was out with the neck injury. And I remember being at Disney World and going back and kind of as watching, Nitro in the room, and like, I didn't know anything about it, and just to see, this thing is really happening, and Shane's on Nitro, and and then when the guys all started coming in, it was weird, and everybody seemed like cool guys, and I knew some of them, I'd known Helms a little bit, and a few of those guys, but there were guys I'd never met before. DDP had never met, Bagwell had never met, like all those, like Sean O'Hare and all those young power plant guys I had never met, Palumbo and all those guys, and they all ended up being super cool guys. But at the same time, when that war was going on, that was a real deal.
Why did it end? How did it end? Who called you?
When I was wrestling there?
Yeah, how did you get released?
So I had a back injury. My L4, L5 disc was completely blown out, and I did a show in Lowell, Massachusetts, and had like some kind of four-way cruiserweight match, and we had an afternoon show and a night show, and I can't remember if it was after the first show or the second show, but it's like something's wrong with my back, something. I just I felt like I'd hurt myself, and I didn't know how bad it was. Until the next day, when you go to get out of bed and you can't move. And I can remember I was traveling with Funaki. We were riding together, and I can remember him having to lug my bag for me and put my bag in the trunk. And then I remember trying to get in the car, and like get your head down and try to bend your back, and I couldn't do it. So couldn't do any of that. So they ended up I worked the next night where I didn't do anything in the match. I just did some kind of roll up, I think, as a finish on me, and I didn't do anything. Just had to get through it. And then the next day they sent me home, and then I rehabbed for a few months on that. And then the day I got cleared by the doctor to come back, Laurinaitis called me and said, we're letting you go. Which I kind of had seen come in for a while. I was about a year into a 3-year contract, and when I signed that contract a year before, I was just like, yeah, I felt like I was done mentally. I felt like I was done there, and they just didn't have anything for me. I was working dark matches or not doing anything at TV, or working with a new flavor of the week, and just it just wasn't really fun anymore, and I constantly felt like I was going to be released. So when the call finally came, it was almost like a weight lifted off my shoulders. So what happened was I'd gone over to FCW, I think either once or twice, and DeMott was the head coach over there, and it was still, I live just outside of Orlando, so it was about an hour away from here. And I went over there, and there was a little bit of talk about possibly moving to Orlando at the time, but I had just gone through, I may have been going through fire school to become a firefighter at the time. It seemed like a good idea at the time. It didn't turn out so well, but I just needed $4,000, something to spend $4,000 on that I was never going to get a return on. So I'll go to fire school, an EMT school. So I did that, and there were kind of I felt like they were feeling me out about a coaching job at that time, and I really didn't like that. I was like, man, I'm kind of done. I was kind of done, and I just like, it was what it was, and I kind of wanted to do the fire thing and get out of the mafia, you know what I mean, and move on and do something else. And then a short while later, they ended up moving to Orlando. Like I said, that's where I live, and DeMott was there. I went in maybe once or twice as a guest coach while DeMott was there. And then he left, and Matt Bloom, who I'd been tight with for, many years, he came in as the head coach. And then I went in a couple more times while he was there as a head coach. And then they, asked me if I'd be interested in a full-time job, and at this time I was past the firefighter thing. I was doing a little bit of real estate, and I was like, well, it's kind of a no-brainer just to at least give it a try. Give it a try. If I don't like it, I don't have to do it. So I went in, and I fell in love with the job. And like I said, I was never trained, so I never went through a school. So it was very intimidating for me to go in and actually, okay, now I have to coach this and teach them how to do this. I know how to do it, but how do I teach it? And I don't know if you know this, but I'm not, the best technical wrestler on the planet. So it's not really my thing. So, I thought that's what they teach in the wrestling schools, and I can't do that, and so that's not what we want you for. We need you for the in-between stuff and the psychology and the character stuff. And it's like, okay, I can do that, and then I think the biggest thing you just kind of fall in love with is the relationships that you create with these, young people. I don't want to call them kids, some of them are early 20s, but they kind of feel like kids, and they kind of start to feel like your own kids when you start to create that relationship, and you see them come in the door for the first time, and then, you're teaching them, how to throw a punch, and then you're gaining their confidence, and they start to trust you, and you see their confidence start to go up, and it creates this relationship with them. And then you see them, go and get better, and they would leave the PC and go to Raw, SmackDown, and next thing you know, you're turning on the TV, and they're on WrestleMania. So it turned out to be a really, really cool job for me, and I really liked it.
Tell me about the Performance Center during the pandemic.
It was a crazy time, man, as it was for the rest of the world. I think, there was so much uncertainty. What was going on? Where was everything going to go? Was everything just going to shut down one day? Like nobody really knew. And then, you have to get tested. At one point, I think we had to get tested every day, and then it turned to maybe twice a week, and then once a week, and then it finally all went away. But, then you have to have masks on while you're in the ring if you're a coach, and then if you're talent, you could take your mask off. But you had to work with the same guy all week until the next test. So it was just, those two guys working with each other. And then if you're outside the ring, as soon as you got out, even if you're a wrestler, you had to put a mask on. And it was just so, like everything else, dude, it was uncertainty and just a crazy time. And I say, like, anybody who went through that time, as far as talent that were on like Raw or SmackDown, especially, with no audience, and you're out there trying to entertain audience at home with no immediate reaction, in the building. It's just like, hats off to them, man. Like that's the hardest time that I think the wrestling business has ever gone through. We have to perform for nobody on a week after week basis, and then you have to go, that's your judge. Are you getting over? Do they like me? Do they hate me? Like, that's your judge, is that audience. At the end of the day, it's, it was always Vince McMahon, but that audience played into it too, because that audience could sway his judgment, right? Because he might not get it, but he's seeing like this person, going out there to getting an insane reaction. Okay, I'm going to do something with this person, and I'm going to market them, right? At that time, it was just, you're basically working for the one guy, and you're getting his opinion without an audience, and it's just, what a hard time.
Why'd you stop working at the Performance Center?
It was just really, I started to get the feelings that I had in 2007 that I told you about, when I was like, okay, there's really nothing for me here. And I felt like, my days could be numbered, and there were a lot of releases happening. And then on the other hand, I saw like kind of cool stuff going on outside on the independents. And I saw like Cardona out there just killing it and having fun. And, I knew I was getting older. I just turned 49, and I'm like, man, if I'm going to do this now, I feel like I could go out there and I could make some money. And, I'd send out some feelers, friends doing independence, going, hey, what do you think I could make? And do you think I would do well? And, who's out there working right now? And like trying to figure out what the competition was for guys like me. And it just felt like the right thing to do. I missed performing, of course. I think you always miss performing. But I also missed the travel, and I missed going, to the UK and going to Japan and going to these places that I otherwise probably wouldn't get to go to. And there was just none of that anymore.
I'll say some names. If you want to give me a 1-word answer, if you want to give me a 5-minute answer, whatever you want to do. Let's start with John Cena.
One of the best to ever do what we do. And I don't know if it bothers him, but it bothers me that sometimes he doesn't get the respect that I feel he deserves from I don't even know what to call them, but maybe the internet wrestling fans, or, I always say like, you get to just Cena sucks chance, right? And the guy's after he kills it, and he does all these Make-A-Wish, and like he loves, I can't remember how many pairs of boots he had, wrestling boots he had when he came into WWE. The guy always just loved wrestling, and he gets this bad. He's only got 5 moves. Well, all of the greats only have 5 moves. It's all you need if you're good at this. It's not about the moves. And he get it, and in a time where the whole Twitter thing and bashing people from behind a keyboard is kind of become a thing. What would have happened? I was like, what would have happened to the Ultimate Warrior? If the whole internet was around. Warrior was great at what he did, but he wasn't the best technical wrestler. Cena was 100 times the wrestler that Warrior was, but Warrior's beloved and should be, because he was good, and he had a great chemistry and great energy about himself. And that's what attracted people. It's not about the moves, so.
Brock Lesnar.
Again, another one, same thing, right? Like, oh, he's a part-timer. Why are you putting the belt on him? Like, dude, it's pro wrestling. Stop dissecting these guys. Stop dissecting pro wrestling and trying to make sense of it all, and just sit back, shut up, and enjoy it. I swear the theme park fans, I say this because I'm I'm a huge Disney nerd, but I follow a lot of the Disney dirt sheets, and it's like the same.
That's their Mickey Mouse, man. He's gonna let some of you guys come up.
He's only got 5 moves, but I swear it's the same people.
Everybody back.
Yeah. But it's always, it used to be better. It always used to be better, and I could do it better than, sometimes the fans don't understand. Like, you've got a guy like a Brock Lesnar. If you and I are sitting, we're both pretty big guys. What are you, 280? Here. But if you and I, we're sitting in a Denny's or a Waffle House at 1 o'clock in the morning, and a dude that looks like Brock Lesnar walks in there, you go, I don't want to fight that guy no matter what. And and I don't know who that guy is, but I know he's a superstar. He's a celebrity. He's something. There's something. There's guys like him, like they're not a dime a dozen, and there's a reason that Brock Lesnar is where he's at.
China.
She's another one. Like, dude, that I always say that her she was awesome, always awesome to me. But I always say that her death was the hardest one for me, probably of all of them, and only because so when she left the company, I'd kind of gotten close with her. For the longest time, I rode with Kane. We were riding partners, and when China and Hunter split up, she started riding with Kane and I. And so I kind of got to know her better at that point, and you're kind of living with somebody for 4 days a week, 24/7, right? And she didn't do drugs, she didn't drink, she was dead against it. She was into working out, right? And then when she left WWE, and she left there, and it was like she kind of went down this bad road, and I saw her on Howard Stern, and I saw her doing the movies, and all this. Sorry, dude. And all this just crazy behavior. And I was like, I don't know who that is. That's not the person that I knew. So it was almost like she had almost died. Like if I felt like the person I knew died when she left WWE, and I didn't speak to her for probably 15 years or see her. And then I did a show in December for Dave Hero in Milwaukee, and she was there, and I saw her, and it was like, this is not the girl I've been seeing on TV for the last 15 years. And it was the same girl that I knew 15 years ago. She was awesome. And like, like, I miss you and I love you, and come out, to California, and you guys come out and stay with me. And I saw her that morning in the hotel right before I got in the cab to go to the airport. And, she said the same thing, make sure, stay in touch, come out and stay with me. And then so that was December. And I think it was April, I woke up and, she had died. And it was like, it was hard, because I knew if she had died when she was going through all the bad stuff, it wouldn't have been shocking. It wouldn't have been as hard to take. I saw her just a couple months ago, and she was like the old person I knew, and she was in a good place, it seemed like. And so that was hard to swallow, but.
Eddie Guerrero.
Again, man, awesome. That's I was say, like, so at WrestleMania 2000, it was me, China, and Brian against Eddie, Dean, and Perry, and I was going, man, like, people can say whatever they want about me, or the company can say whatever they want about me, but I wrestled Eddie Guerrero at WrestleMania. Like, nobody can ever take that away from me. Like, that's pretty cool. I think one of the best of all times, when he was when he was that Latino Heat thing, and he was on fire, and he was so good at it, but that was a hard one too. That was hard. It was a hard time. It seemed like it was every month at one point,
Triple H.
Awesome at what he does. It's crazy because we kind of started out in the Northeast together, and I actually remember in '93 I went to Memphis to work for Lawler, and I came back from USWA a couple months later, and I remember doing a show for Eugenio, and it was him and Paul Richards. They were friends at the time, both Kowalski guys. They showed up at the Eugenio show just to hang out and kind of watch the show. And he was asking me about if he should go to USWA or whatever. And then shortly after, he ended up going to WCW. But it's just crazy to think, like, went from that, I have a VHS of him wrestling in my high school, and just to think, like, this guy would be the guy at 20, 30 years later. And he's really good at what he does. And I think we're seeing that right now, with him kind of starting to take back over. And we saw what he did with NXT, and working underneath him was awesome. Like, when he went away, it was just like a whole new company, a whole different management and all that. But it was, he definitely had a vision for what he wanted, and there was a coolness to what he wanted. And I think, a lot of that may stem from, like, I know he's a big Kiss fan. I'm a big Kiss fan. And like, Kiss is all about the show. You can say they're musicians or whatever, but Kiss is about the show. And bands like that are about the show, and they go out there and they put on a great show. And I think that's what, he tried to do with NXT, and, hopefully he will do with WWE now. And he doesn't get enough credit, and I would just see him like during rehearsals sometimes, just change a little thing that, a little thing will become this big thing down the road that nobody else would have thought of. He just saw and said, hey, why don't you do this way? And then it's really cool to see, man.
Last two, John Laurinaitis.
I'll skip that one.
Okay. Vince McMahon.
He's the reason we all wanted to do this. Both you and I think probably fell in love with. I know you were in a fair carnival show, mud wrestling, but I was kind of into WWF.
Oil wrestling. Oil wrestling.
But dude, you can't take away what he did. I just think it was time for a change. And I think we're seeing that now, and I'll always be thankful for what he did for me and the platform he gave me to create the name and do what I do and do what I love. But I think, it was time to go, and like I said, I think we're starting to see that.